I want to say welcome if you are hopping on and joining our WebEx today. If you are here for the WebEx Mental Health Matters session on online dangers, prevention, and support, then you are in the right place. So we are so glad to have you all. My name is Stephanie Allen, and I am with Madison City Schools. I'm our Mental Health Services Coordinator. And I'm going to set up our session and our learning environment today by just saying welcome. We're glad you're here. We are going to have a great session to help support you as a parent, as a supportive adult, as an educator, as anyone who works with or has young people in your life, and specifically focus on the online world and how that might can even impact our students' mental health. So welcome to our online session today. I'm going to get us started by that welcome and be mindful of your time as you're joining in and go over a few housekeeping items. One is that we are recording our uh, WebEx today, and hopefully that recording we will be able to post and share later via email if you're able to attend part or whole or want to share with someone else. And we'll also have this posted on our website in our digital toolbox on the Madison City Schools Mental Health Matters webpage. So please look for that information, but I did want you to know it is being recorded today so we can use it for future use as well. I want to say a huge thank you to our Mental Health Matters team. It truly is a team to plan our events and to help take care of our students and our parents in Madison City Schools. Mental Health Matters team started about 3 years ago with a partnership with Madison City Schools and our Madison City Council of PTAs. And such a great, incredible partnership working together, bringing education, bringing support, bringing resources to not just our students in schools, but connecting that piece to home and the parents as we're all working together to find what's best in supporting our students' mental health. So, thank you to Madison City Schools PTA. I can't say enough about what a wonderful advocate and resource and partner that you are with us. So, thank you. Thank you there. Also want to let you know really quickly that we do have a Q&A box available that will go to the panelists only, myself and Beth Jackson, who will be doing our presentation today. If we have time at the end and there were questions that you don't get asked or you don't get answered in the webinar today, you can drop that in the box and we'll hopefully be able to address those at the end. Part of our goal today is we wish we could cover it all. We won't be able to cover everything, but providing you with resources so you know where to start, you know where to go when you are looking for those questions to be answered. But if you have a question that is not answered in the presentation, feel free to drop that in the Q&A box and we can take a look at that later. And then the last thing I want to say before I turn it over to our presenter today is that at the very end of our session, you will find that there is a survey. And that survey just is a few brief questions to ask for your feedback on today. Ask what you want to learn about in the future, and that really helps drive the events that we plan and the resources that we bring to you. So please take a few minutes at the end to complete that survey. Well, all right, let me introduce Beth Jackson. She is our presenter today. We're so fortunate to have her with us. A little introduction about Beth. She has worked on the behalf of at-risk children for almost 35 years. She is currently the Community Education Program Manager and a therapist at the National Children's Advocacy Center. She also worked as the education director and the director of operations for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Huntsville for almost 6 years. She's a licensed professional counselor and a terrific advocate for our children and families. We are so thankful to have her with us today to lend her expertise on protecting our kids online, what to look for, what to know, and also how to communicate and how we as adults, supportive adults, can communicate with our kids about these online dangers that they face today. They face new things that we did not have growing up. We did not face. And so we need to be armed as parents to know what to do and how to support them. So thank you, Beth, for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to you and let you share with us your presentation today.
All right, thank you so much. I'm so glad everybody could be here today. This is a lot of information. We were talking earlier, Stephanie and I, about how you could take one topic from many of this presentation and spend a whole hour on it because things are moving so quickly. But I hope we give you lots of different resources and some ideas and some things that you can look into that you'll find helpful as we all try to navigate this really quick moving world that we have now with social media and online activity. So I'm going to share my screen. Right. Okay. So let me say, I know that sometimes I have a lot of questions. I wish we could be a little more interactive, but I know we have to kind of work within what we have today. Oftentimes when I've made this presentation, I get a lot of questions about people that are really looking for the nitty gritty and the technology that they could use to, for instance, monitor, limit, spy, and what have you in terms of the technology, what they can actually do on phones, what they can do with their routers and all those things. And that is not my wheelhouse at all. I am familiar with a lot of it, but what I really encourage you to do is to definitely talk with your service provider, whoever is doing your cell phone service, whoever's doing your internet service. Everyone is a little bit different, but they have definitely, all of them have added a lot of different bells and whistles that can help you with trying to help your kids manage their internet and social media use and their time, as well as doing more monitoring. So I heartily encourage you, if that's what you're interested in, reach out, look at what your provider has, and hopefully they'll have something that will be helpful to you. Okay, so we all know, right? Social media and the internet, it is increasingly not offline and online. It's kind of like recently, it's all meshed together. Okay, it's all meshed together. It doesn't seem like that long ago that we used to have to make a point to get online. We used to have to, press the button, get on the laptop, get on our phone, and what have you. But now, as we all know, we have a news feed that runs all the time. Usually most people have the apps, that they're using that are always up and going at all times. And teens are especially that way. I don't know how many times I've heard, even in therapy, when kids can't have their phones, because I really ask them, please, let's put the phones away, that they want to check their snaps and they want to check their Instagram, and they want to be right there, able and willing to actually, be available. And so in terms of using the language of offline and online, we as the adults kind of use that, but really for kids, it's just life now. It's really all together. We know that, for 13 to 17, 95% of young people, they are using at least one media platform, if not many, many more. And it's getting increasingly difficult to block and filter. Although I will say, I feel like technology is starting to catch up a little bit with that, when now you can actually, through those services, mirror and see exactly what your kids are doing, or they can't download an app without your permission and so on. But one thing I want to say, they are smart and they can often figure out a way around it. So I know oftentimes I also get a lot of questions about, what's the app to watch out for? What's the app that we shouldn't allow them to have? And folks, there's always going to be an app around the corner. It doesn't matter. There's really not one super dangerous one. I know a few years ago, kind of when chat roulette and some of those things came out, where you get on and you just kind of plop onto whatever screen that you want to see what someone's doing. There's always a new one around the corner that we have to worry about. So what I like to think about is that, how can I talk with them about what to look out for? Because again, there's always going to be something that we'll be worried about, and really the basic safety messages haven't really changed. It's just the delivery of the danger has changed a little bit. And right now, things haven't changed much in the last few years. According to somewhat recent data, things always run a little behind. Really, TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat are the big ones, and they're always kind of in that top three, with YouTube really running up in there big time. Yes, they go to Facebook, but why do you think they migrated off of Facebook years ago? Because we as the adults invaded it. So they're out of there. You know, think back to when you were a teenager. Did you want to hang out where the adults hung out? Probably not. You wanted to have your own space and be somewhere where, just your friends were and other people your age. And that is basically why we start to invade a space, they move on to the next app. One that I've seen increasingly grow over the last couple of years is Discord. And basically, it is a way for them to set up their own server, if you will, and invite people to participate. Again, there's really nothing wrong with that, except who are they inviting in and do they keep it private? And we'll talk a little bit about that in a while. Sorry about that again. It's a little dry today. Artificial intelligence, I'm sure we've all heard about it. What I really want to share is that it is so rapidly advancing, it's very difficult to keep up with it. We've had a lot of talk about Chat GPT, which people are using, and isn't it? It's great. Sometimes if you need to, I know even for work, I might need to write something really quickly. I can have Chat GPT look at it, see if there's a better way to state something. That's wonderful. But there are concerns with it because Chat GPT is pulling everything from what is available online. And is everything online the truth and true? No, it's not. So it's only pulling from what is available. And so what are some of the problems with that? We have a lot of plagiarism. I know I've read that in some of the educational web forums. There's a lot of plagiarism with it. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories that are not true that it can pull from. So sometimes you're not going to necessarily get exactly correct and right information. So we need to be talking with kids about artificial intelligence. Is there a place for it? Is it going anywhere? No, it's not. But how we also need to have critical thinking around it. That is what it's giving to us correct? And then, unfortunately, just in the last year to 2 years, we've seen an increasing amount of AI developments around pictures and videos. And unfortunately, the biggest problem we're seeing is where it's drawing off real images of children and creating what was formerly known as child pornography, but now we call it child sexual abuse material. That is very, very concerning because laws can't keep up with some of this. Unfortunately, the players and actors that create this kind of material, there's really no laws around if it's technically fake and made up because it's been drawn from lots of different sources online. Is that really against the law, even though technically it is pictures of children, with no clothes and doing sexual things? It's very, very difficult to deal with. And I think right now the law is just basically saying that any type of material, whether real or whether it's actually AI generated, is considered to be still child sexual abuse material or child pornography. So we've just got lots of different issues that will continue to evolve as we go with pictures and videos. Another one that has also been concerning is with bullying. So just recently, I read an article about a young man at a high school who found pictures of girls, just innocent pictures that they had on their Instagram, on their Facebook, what have you, and basically took those and used cloth to create fake naked pictures of them and then sent them out to the school. And it was really devastating to those girls. And so basically, it was a form of bullying. Not really sure what his intent was, except that he did want to cause harm. And so it was bullying or drama, as teenagers often call it. And it created a lot of issues for those girls. And then again, how were the rules and going to keep up with this? Because technically it wasn't real pictures, but then on the other hand, it did do damage and it looked real. So again, the consequences were pretty severe unfortunately, for those girls that were involved. And all of you may have seen some of that information. 60 Minutes actually has done a piece on it. If you want to go check it out, you can find it on the 60 Minutes website. And the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children often discussed about, what we can do to try to prevent that, or if it happens to your child, what to do about it. And again, we'll talk about that in just a little bit as well. So mental health, as Stephanie said, right, we're all really trying to be concerned about what kinds of impact is all this social media use and internet use having upon our children's brains, because it does change them. It's a lot different, of course, than when we were growing up. There's not a lot of delayed gratification anymore. Bam, you can just get it. And we do know from brain research that teen brains are highly sensitive between the ages of 10 and 19. I mean, that is really when they're doing a lot of exploration around their identities. They're trying to figure out feelings. And again, I want you to remember back. I know I always, for myself, think, gosh, it's been such a long time. But think back to those teen years and how intense everything is when you're a teenager. Okay, it's so intense. Things that sometimes I know we hear some, kids and teenagers say to us that they are mortified about something, or it's just so overwhelming. And in our minds, we're thinking, is it that bad, what they're talking about? For them, it is. It is that bad when they're feeling overwhelmed. And we know, too, that the more social media use they have, the greater the likelihood is that they could have some negative mental health outcomes. Now, again, there's some competing factors here, but we do know that kids who have the most use and spend a lot of their time online usually test higher for depression and anxiety. Okay, and they really do mark their overall mental health well-being as lower than somebody that doesn't use it quite as much. Okay, so the data's there, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. And again, there's a source here from Yale Medicine that if you want to go look into it more, you certainly can. And also, I should have mentioned, everybody's going to receive my PowerPoint handout, so you don't need to take notes or anything. You'll have full access to this and any of the resources that I've included. So, how can we manage some of this? And again, looking at research and looking at the data, and even talking with kids and teenagers, a strong parent relationship and monitoring can have a really significant impact on mental health for kids and teenagers. I know they oftentimes act like they don't want us to be involved, but actually I think they do in a lot of different ways, or they at least want us to be available. Okay, they want us to be available. One thing I notice as I'm talking with tweeners and teenagers is they often complain about not feeling acknowledged by caretakers, that their feelings are kind of boo-pooed. They had something important to talk about, and mom or dad or their caregiver just kind of said, oh, it'll be fine, you'll get over it. They just didn't feel like they got that acknowledgement of at least their feelings. Even if we don't agree necessarily with the level of their feelings and what we think it should be, teenagers and kids want us to just acknowledge at times that, wow, whatever that was, XYZ must have been really hard for you. I hear you saying that it was really hard for you. Okay. They need that acknowledgement, and that's what they're looking for in parental relationships and monitoring too. I think most people do have, I think it's Life 360 where we're tracking, but also monitoring includes asking them, what are you using? What's your favorite thing? What are things that you see as being problems? Monitoring can be more interactive than just watching. It can also be getting their thoughts and feelings about what's going on and what they're witnessing with friends and such. And then as they get older, we have to be educating them about how tech companies and the algorithm is marketing to every single one of us all the time, trying to keep us hooked in, trying to keep us watching and looking. I mean, I don't know about you, I can look at something on my phone and the very next day I'm having pop-ups actually on my laptop, because everything's connected about that product I looked at or that news article I looked at. It's always looking to market and keep us hooked into it. And kids need to be aware of that. And they're actually pretty savvy anyway, but just talking with them about how basically they're doing everything they can to keep us hooked in and paying attention to them so they can market things to us, so to speak. One other issue I also want to bring up with that too is really the big impact on body image. And really, I think that is for all of us. Again, with AI, I go back to AI, and even before this, right? We always talked about how things are photoshopped and so on. That everything, I mean, even in AI now, it's getting increasingly difficult to tell what is and what isn't. But I think we can pretty much guess that most things will be at minimum enhanced, digitally enhanced with AI in terms of pictures and things like that. It's not real. A lot of times what we're seeing and observing is not real, and we need to help kids figure this out. We need to help our teenagers figure this out, that when they're trying to compare themselves to what they're seeing, that it's just not realistic. And again, having those conversations with them is really, really important. So one big thing that we have seen in just the last couple of years, since the pandemic, 2020, 2021, is an increasing rise in what we call sextortion. And sextortion is essentially blackmail. It's where a child or teenager is manipulated and tricked into sharing some type of picture of their body parts, of them without clothes on, in the nude, and then essentially how they are tricked is that the other actor is actually pretending to be a romantic interest, so to speak. That it's somebody that is, oh, I see you're a friend with my friend. I want to connect with you. Let's trade just, some pictures. Let's just say if it's a young man, the picture that comes across to him is of an attractive young woman, and they kind of just start texting, and then it becomes a I'll show you mine if you show me yours kind of thing, okay? And maybe she sends a picture of breasts or her vagina or what have you, and then he's encouraged to then send a picture of his penis, and then we go from there. And that's something called catfishing. That's been around for quite some time. Once that young man sends that picture, it's all over. And immediately sextortion starts. I've got you now. You've sent me a picture. You send me a gift card for $250. You send me $250, $500, $1,000 right now, or I'm going to out you to all your friends. Your parents aren't going to love you anymore, and so on and so forth. And again, as I said, just in the last couple of years, we've seen an increasingly number of young men actually sextorted through gaming platforms, and other things like Instagram and Snapchat and such. Very, very much, innocent kind of flirting, they think, and then things just turn against them. And these are usually perpetrated by strangers. There's a video called No Escape Room at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's website. And there's a link here. I really encourage you to go watch that video because it actually takes real life, real world kind of cases and encapsulates it into a very short 7-8 minute video that you can watch first and see if it's something that you'd like to watch with your teenagers. I think it'd be very, very appropriate to share that with them and get their thoughts on it and just what to look out for. Back when, just even again 2 years ago, which is why I have our 2022 and 2024 dates highlighted, when we were talking about sextortion just two and a half years ago, we were thinking that most of the time that could be perpetrated by people known to most kids. That would have been whether that was dating partners, people from school, you name it. It could be any number of people that they know, okay? And that when it was perpetrators that were strangers, it was typically people that they, again, that they had met online and were kind of more interested in dating, so to speak. And I would say back in 2022, 2023, it was more like 60% were people known to the kids who were being sextorted, and the only, 35 to 40% were strangers. Well, that's flipped now. just in a couple of years, that has flipped. And perpetrators are now mainly strangers. Now that's for all kids, male and female, probably more like almost 70% strangers and 30% people that they know. And again, very recently, most of the time it's been boys and young men that they've been that are being sextorted between the ages of 14 and 17. And you know, again, it's that innocent, they think flirting, attractive girl, and that I'll show you mine, you show me yours, and then it's on, and they feel so trapped by what's going on. When girls are the target, it is often more often not financial sextortion, but more for more sexual images and also relational in nature. That maybe as two people were dating, they shared some nudes, and then she wants to break off the relationship. And now that partner is saying, you know what, if you don't continue to date me, I'm going to send these out and ruin your life. Okay, that's typically oftentimes what we see with girls. There are victims from all walks of life. It does not discriminate at all. I will say reporting, it's probably happening a lot more than we really know, but from the data, we know that most of the reporting is happening from the United States and Canada and somewhat Europe. Okay, so why are you so vulnerable to manipulation? I know, and again, our adult minds, okay, because I want to help you remember, we're dealing with teenage brains and teen brain development. And also, I don't want to leave the younger kids out because unfortunately we are seeing sometimes the ages drop in victims of online victimization. So, but why is that? Why do they send that picture? I know I've been in therapy with kids and they'll tell me they sent a nude, and in my mind it's just screaming, why did you send that nude? Why did you do it? You know, but I've got to go back to the teen brain, okay? They have an impulsive brain. It's part of that stage of development. It's all impulse, 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 impulse. And that is a hard, hard wall to climb for us as adults to help them figure it out. They're more into the here and now. They're not necessarily thinking of consequences very often. Okay, they just don't. And again, I want you to go back to your own teen years and think about what you were doing. Okay. And I, for one, am so grateful that I did not grow up in this time when there could have been a phone or somebody ready to take a picture of me doing some really stupid stuff that I did. Okay, I am so grateful. And this is what our kids have to live with, that they can make mistakes and make bad decisions, which they're going to. Nobody is perfect. That's part of this stage of development, that they are going to sometimes do something very impulsive and make a mistake. But now it's like it's captured forever, or the consequences can actually be much deeper and last a lot longer than maybe they did for us. So again, they are impulsive. They are naturally curious about sex and sexuality. This is that time of life. We better get comfortable in talking with them about it and not avoiding it. They're interested in romantic partnerships. They often get inaccurate information, whether it's from friends or frankly online as well. We really have to just keep all this in mind and kind of check the judgment. Okay, check it. You can think it, but check it before we talk with them about it, about the consequences and how we're going to deal with it. We have to check that judgment, and we have to check the shame and the blame, and try to, as adults, just keep it inside and understand where they're coming from and that they are going to make mistakes. And we know that there's also a population that is much more vulnerable to online victimization. And any non-heterosexual youth or gender questioning youth, they are especially vulnerable online because they're looking for love and acceptance. They feel the judgment of society in general, and so they're looking for that oftentimes online, unfortunately. So they are especially vulnerable to online manipulation. Okay. So, and what kind of feeds into online victimization and danger is this time we're living in of everything's out there, everything. Everybody's posting pictures, everybody's posting every thought and what they're eating for breakfast what's going on at their house and what's going on with the pets. And frankly, what I've really noticed since the pandemic, when everybody was on lockdown, kids are increasingly posting very private things about themselves, mental health struggles, what's going on at home. Again, they're just looking for this community that understands how they feel and what's going on with them and looking to connect in that way. And so they don't think twice about posting stuff about their mental health struggles. They don't think twice about posting family stuff and family issues that are going on. And then on top of it, they don't think too much either at times about nudes anymore, because especially for young adults, okay, in college, and frankly, I'm going to say older, sending nudes, or what the adults call sexting, because kids don't call it that, it's sending nudes, that they see that people are using that in the dating world. And so now, good news is most don't necessarily send nudes or sext, but we do know that many do. And this is just overexposure, and that everything is out there oftentimes promotes that just it's all out there, everybody's sharing everything. And so we have to really help them, again, critically think about what is it that they really want to be out about themselves that's going to potentially be there forever. So as you've heard me say, in terms of what to do and helping them navigate, we really do have to all think about before we post. Does everything need to be out there? A lot of times we assume that kids know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate to post. We have to have those conversations. Again, the two-way conversation, get their input. What do you think is okay to put out there? What do you think is it? What do you okay with all your classmates at school knowing about you or not? Okay. I know that we've tried to move away from some more kind of fear-based kind of warnings about stranger danger and all those things, because a lot of times they just kind of tune us out. We really want to help them get into, again, critical thinking about how, when we are online, we are operating with people that we've potentially only met online, that anybody can be manipulated or tricked. Anybody, including adults. That happens all the time. Okay, it happens all the time. I remember seeing reading an article about an IT person who actually sent, I'll say it, we're all adults here, a dick pic, so to speak, to somebody he thought he was interested in an online dating world. And actually, it was the same thing. He was sextorted. They started demanding money, that they were going to send his pictures that he had sent to who he thought was a woman that he wanted to date. They threatened to send that to his workplace, put it all over his social media, and so on. Anybody can be manipulated. We don't think they're stupid. It just means we all have to watch out. And that if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. Okay. We want to avoid blaming and shaming as much as we can. This is what perpetrators of online manipulation are betting on. Okay. They are going to use that. They're going to say things like, your mom and dad aren't going to love you anymore. They're going to be so ashamed of you. You've been shameful to the family. Your life is going to be ruined. It's over as you know it, because I've got you. This is what they're trying to do. We want our kids to know that they can come to us with anything that, yeah, we're not going to like the behavior. We're going to wish they had made a different choice, obviously, but nothing is so bad that you can't get through it, and that you're still going to love them and accept them no matter what's happened. Okay. Another thing that we really want to be aware of too, and the research tells us this, that kids who have the right information about healthy sexuality and healthy relationships, it is protective. It is a protective factor for them. When we are calling the body parts by the right names, and I'll dare to say them, penis and vagina and breasts and butt, they're not bad words. They are body parts. It's no big deal. From early on, kids should know the names of their body parts. We need to include both healthy sexuality information to them as well as the unhealthy. Okay. We need to be sure that they have good information about what's healthy relationships as they get older, both for friendships and as they start dating. That they have a right to privacy, they have a right to boundaries. They should not be forced to share passwords on social media with their friends. That's not necessary. They don't have to share their passwords with best friends. That doesn't mean they're not best friends anymore. We need to help them be able to manage the ask for when. It's not if somebody ever asks them for a nude, it's when it happens. How are they going to manage it? What are they going to do about it? And that they can come and talk to you without you saying, well, that's it, no phone, no access. Again, come and talk to me. I want you to come and talk to me, and we can manage that together. We need to talk about romantic relationships and what that means. That again, the 18 and 19 plus people are too old to be having dating relationships with 11, 12, 13-year olds, right? When I'm talking with kids, I kind of talk about the 2 year, the year older and the year younger is the sweet spot for dating. Okay, that is kind of the sweet spot, and you will have your own sweet spot in your family. But up and above that, that's really not necessarily the best place to be. Okay, and that if we're sharing nudes and asking for nudes of other people, we're putting ourselves at risk too. So we also don't want to be asking others for that kind of information, and prepare them for when they see pornography. Because the bottom line is not if they get to see it, it's when. Even when you have their phones locked down, you have everything monitored. We know that unfortunately, peers on the school bus, wherever that is, that they oftentimes will be, look what I found. When I'm now having kids of all walks of life coming in to therapy, and they're telling me at age 9 that a friend of theirs showed them Pornhub and how to get on it. This is some of the stuff we're dealing with. So we need to prepare them. You want to be the go-to. I just cannot emphasize this enough. You want to be the go-to for your kids for any questions that they have about anything related to what we've been talking about today, that nothing is off limits, nothing is bad. Please come to me and ask questions. I'm going to do my best to answer you the best way that I can. That if they hear something stupid at school, somebody comes and shows them something that makes them feel uncomfortable, they are going to come and talk to you, and identify other adults as well that they can talk to. I know my sister and I talked often about my niece, and she would say, hey, she's bringing this stuff up. Be prepared if she asks you, because sometimes they will go talk to that auntie or uncle or grandma or grandpa or that close family friend. Just all be on the same page, and that no matter what, if somebody is hurting them or trying to force them into something, you are always going to love them and do what you can to help. Okay, that is no matter what. We often talk a lot too about bullying and cyberbullying, and we know that unfortunately the behavior hasn't really changed a whole lot. It's just they've gotten a lot of great tools now to use. And one thing too, kids never get away from it now. Back in, again, my day, I'll use myself, I can remember when things happened at school, at least when you got home, you didn't have to worry about it. You maybe had your friends in the neighborhood, you didn't have to worry about it. You had your friends at church, didn't have to worry about it. At school was where you worried about it. Well, now, with our cell phones and with stuff, it's like they never get away. This can be, ongoing harassment, embarrassment, and so on. And again, I want to point out the language too, that, and I noticed this too with the children and teens that I serve in therapy. Younger kids call it bullying. It's still bullying. But one thing I do notice with probably around the tweens, I would say 11, 12 and up, that's kind of more drama. They think bullying happens to those younger kids, but the behaviors that they're talking about essentially are bullying. It's that harassment, that sending, posting something nasty, Instagram, whether it is Instagram, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Snapchat, it's still posting mean, nasty stuff about each other, and spreading rumors about is still all bullying. But again, they just kind of focus in on it as drama. Again, unfortunately, for many bullying situations, it can often still be related to real life. It is usually kids they do know in real life. However, again, since the pandemic, I can think about several of the kids I worked with that because of everybody kind of, again, being in quarantine, what I noticed is that if they were online a whole lot more and kind of creating their own community online, for instance, through Discord, what I would sometimes witness is where kids would share a lot of that personal information about themselves, some of their mental health struggles, and maybe they did invite a lot of these other kids to be part of their Discord. Well, then it felt like oftentimes there'd be that one bad apple that would then start harassing them and teasing them and making fun of them for their mental health challenges. So, not to say it's always related to real life, it can still be related to also just the online world. I think we see that sometimes even in gaming platforms as well, where somebody just kind of starts to harass and harass and harass. And sometimes some kids will just say they wouldn't get on that gaming platform for a while. Um, Sextortion, I would say that is probably the most severe form, especially if it's by people that the kids know, not necessarily the stranger kind of sextortion, but could be considered one of the most, the worst forms of cyberbullying. And oftentimes we as parents wonder, why don't kids tell us what's going on? And I had just read an interesting article where they really fear being judged. Okay, they fear being judged, and they fear that if they tell us that something's happening via social media, that somehow we're going to take it all away from them. That is probably the number one fear, is no access. And I'm sure you've seen that if you use that as a consequence, for bad grades or what have you, they do not want to do without their phones and their access to social media. Oftentimes they do think they can maybe fix it on their own, and that we as the adults may make it worse. We're going to run down to the school and get everybody involved. And sometimes they do want a chance to fix it on their own if they can. And sometimes they don't even realize what's going on. Again, our middle schoolers and high schoolers sometimes, again, just think about it as drama, and it's almost kind of normal, if you will. But we do know that they can still suffer quite a bit. Okay. So what can, again, when we're in a cyberbully situation or any kind of bully or drama situation, I don't have all the answers to this. I often get approached by adults too, that they have really been through the ringer, gone all the way up to school boards in trying to deal with this. But I think that oftentimes, the squeaky wheel just, continue to try to, if it's gotten so bad that you are involved, try to be the squeaky wheel and go to your schools and get help. Definitely encourage kids not to bully others and to be kind to others, because if they're bullying and harassing others, it puts them at risk for also being a victim. Do not reply or respond to the mean, nasty snaps and texts and what have you, and their friends also not to respond on their behalf. Once you respond, you get drawn into it and it becomes a tit for tat. So it's really only going to make it worse. And we need to help our kids have some empathy and be allies, rather than engaging in, when it becomes the big group, rather than engaging in and continuing to pass those kinds of negative messages along, to not participate. That if that was you in that situation, what would you want somebody to do for you? Not pass that along, not join in the teasing and the harassing. If you can, say something positive, even if you do it anonymously. Reach out to that kid and say, hey, I'm sorry this is happening. Again, trying to treat others as we want to be treated. If they do come in and talk with you about something, try not to get on the horse to go in and rescue. Say, how can I help you? What would you like me to do? How can we be partners in helping to deal with this situation? And block bullies and harassers from their cell phones. And again, inform that school. And if it has to reach the point of law enforcement getting involved, if there's been actual threats to their physical safety, do not delete. If you can help it, do not delete or erase messages. And I know with Snapchat and Instagram and all that, things disappear really quickly. If it's really building, you can take screenshots of what it is that people are saying and doing if you have to, even if that message is going to disappear. And again, I can't emphasize enough how much we don't want our own kids to be bullies. Okay. So I'm going to just kind of summarize some overall tips. And the first thing I want to say is that as soon as we give children access to a tablet, Start limiting time immediately. They only get so much time, because then you don't, if you give them unlimited time now because they're so young to play their games, then you're trying to pull it back later. It makes it harder. Limit time immediately. Okay, limit it immediately. An hour, 20 minutes. You can actually go to the American Academy of Pediatrics, and they have some really great guidelines about how much time per age group. Okay, we also have to model the behavior we want to see. We have to limit our time, and we have to limit our access too. We can't expect we can't expect our kids to not have their phones at dinner if we're looking at ours. Okay, when we all have offline time, oftentimes kids want to be offline, and they want to be able to use us as the bad guy to say, mom said I needed to get off. Well, great, I'll be the bad guy. Tell them it's me telling you can't be online. That's absolutely fine. Communicating all the time about what's happening, get their input. We're not saying you got to have an hour-long conversation on the way home from school. Some of these conversations might be really short, 5-minute conversations on the way home. Hey, I heard that this kid did, or I saw this on the news. What do you think about that? What do your friends talk about? Again, warn them about what they might run across. Okay, again, I can't say that strongly enough about pornography, that kids are getting exposed so early. They need a heads up about what they're seeing, and that how it's fake. You can instill your values so that they have that filter so they know, oh, this is not what mom and dad have shared with me. And I know this is not good. Try not to overreact. Okay, if they see us overreact, they're not going to come to us. And use when they come to us with stuff, use it as teachable moments. Go take a break for a minute if you have to, but use it as teachable moments. Again, identify all the different adults, your social circle. Identify the other adults they can talk to if they don't always want to come to you. And yes, you certainly want to be familiar with what the apps your kids are using. Just get familiar with them. I know that takes some time, but it's important to do so. And if you're monitoring, that is great, but that can't be the only thing you do. You've got to keep having good two-way conversations with them as they go. And again, realize everything, help them understand. Just because they saw it online doesn't make it true. I think we all have to remind ourselves of that. We have to be able to have critical thinking skills to go question some of the things we read and see. Is that real? I'm not real sure it is. And question that. And again, remember our vulnerable populations of sexual orientation and gender questioning. They are just so very vulnerable to online manipulation. If you, your child, anybody you know experiences any kind of online victimization, please report to law enforcement. The district attorney's office says that if it's something that's only happened online and you don't know who that person is in real life, please contact your local law enforcement, but also contact your local FBI field office, because chances are it could potentially cross state lines. Okay, if unfortunately a picture has been posted and you want to get it taken down, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children also has a take it down kind of tool that you can use now that helps people find nudes, online nudes, and get them offline as best that they can. It's may not get everything down, but it's actually pretty effective. At least initially, it's only been available for a couple of years, but it's been pretty effective in helping get online nudes down. Okay. Just lastly, finally, there's a ton of resources here that I'm going to leave you with. I love this National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They're my go-to for just about anything. They have lots of wonderful tools for kids through their NetSmarts programs that have really engaging tools and things that kids can look at and families can do together. Another one I really want to point out is connectsafely.org. It's not all about the danger. It's kind of just talking with and how we can manage things as they kind of come down the pike, if you will. Because again, there's always something new coming, and Connect Safely does a great job of staying on top of that. And then thorn.org is also another wonderful resource to look at. So I just encourage you to go check some of those out, and I hope you find them really helpful. Okay, Stephanie, I think I've gone through everything. And we can see if we have any questions.
Sure. Wow. Thank you so much, Beth. That was really just great information. I know that we are going to be sharing the PowerPoint, but I was over here taking all kinds of notes. So thank you for that. If you do have a question in the next few minutes, if you want to drop it in that question box, Beth and I can take a look at that. I just wanted to point out a couple of things while you have time to do that. One is that I had not seen before, Beth shared with me that one video, she linked it in her slideshow called noescaperoom.org, and it's an interactive video. So again, Beth advised you to view it first and then see if you want to view it with your children. I did it, went through it, and I'm absolutely going to share it with all of my boys because I thought it was very, very helpful, a great conversation piece. And again, depending on the ages of your children, but I highly encourage you to check that out when we send out that resource as well. And when you do it, answer the questions in the wrong way, do what you shouldn't do and see how that story unfolds. Very, very helpful to get them, as you said, Beth, looking at those critical thinking skills. Love that as we're teaching and having these conversations. And one thing that also stood out to me is this is not a one-time conversation that we have with our kids. You mentioned the short, it could be in the car, it could be on the way home, it could be, hey, I saw this, or I heard this, or what do you think about this? But it's a conversation that happens frequently. You're probably not going to get 90 minutes of their attention, but you can get 5 minutes and do it frequently and really inform and open those lines of communication. I often say to parents, if they've never heard it from you, then you're probably not going to be the person they come to when it is an issue. But if they've had conversations with you in different ways about different things, they know you're okay with having those conversations. Really helps them in a time when they need to talk to be able to come. So thank you for all of that great information, Beth. I want to also just share the next webinar we have, mark your calendar if you're not already registered, is on March the 19th. It's going to be at noon again, so maybe you can catch us in your lunch break. And it is specifically for building self-esteem in this digital age. Beth did a wonderful job covering so much today, and this is something you even touched on about body image and how social media can impact that, and even AI. So if you want a little bit of a deeper dive on the self-esteem, building that self-esteem and resilience, then make sure you join us on March 19th for that webinar as well. That will be hosted by the Enrichment Center. Well, hosted by us in Madison City Schools, but the presenter will be from the Enrichment Center, and we're looking forward to having them as well. Beth, I don't see any questions in here. You must have done just a great job covering it all. You did. And I love the resources that you shared. So again, I will follow up our webinar today with an email that hopefully includes the video from today, the slides from today, and a link to our online toolbox, the Mental Health Matters toolbox that's linked on our Madison City Schools homepage that will have some of these resources as well. But I think that is so important to know where to go and what to do when we're looking at that.
I will send you the handouts as soon as we get off.
Okay.
Send you the handout.
Great. Thank you so much. Let's see. We haven't gotten any questions, but we've gotten some thank yous. Great information, great webinar. And again, there's going to be a short survey. So when you leave the webinar today, it should take you to that landing page. Drop us some feedback and help us know what you want to learn about next, and we'll be happy to do that. And Beth, you were so knowledgeable. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your wealth of knowledge. I love that you are so knowledgeable about this, but also, in a position where you're currently working with children and youth, and you're seeing this day in and day out. So thank you for helping equip us as parents or supporting adults, as educators, as we work with our students.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, if you have any questions that you did not get answered, please feel free to follow up with myself. You should have my email following the webinar or with Beth, and we're happy to address any issues that we can. So
Thank
thank you
you.
so much, Beth. Thank you to everyone who joined in, and we will look forward to our next webinar on March 19th. So join us for that.
Thanks so much. Bye.